Hello friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Sunil. In this video, let's discuss about Azure NAT Gateway. NAT Gateway provides outbound internet connectivity for one or more subnets of a virtual network. Once NAT Gateway is associated to a subnet, NAT Gateway provides source network address translation for that subnet. NAT Gateway specifies which static IP address can be used when creating outbound flow. Static IP address comes from public IP addresses or public IP prefix or both. When using a public IP prefix, NAT gateway consumes all IPs of the entire public IP prefix. NAT gateway comes with few benefits. Let's discuss one by one. Security wise, with the NAT gateway, individual VM or other computer resources don't need public IP address and can remain private. Communicate to public network resources with NAT gateways, static public IP addresses, or public IP prefix. Resiliency wise, if we talk about Azure NAT Gateway is a fully managed and distributed service. NAT Gateway always has multiple fault domains and can sustain multiple failover without service outage. NAT Gateway can be created in a specific availability zone or placed in a no zone. Scalability wise, if we talk about, the outbound connectivity can be scaled out by assigning up to 16 public IP addresses to NAT gateway. When a NAT gateway is associated to a public IP prefix, it automatically scales to the number of IP addresses needed for outbound. Performance wise, if we talk about, Azure NAT gateway is a software defined network service. A NAT gateway won't affect the network bandwidth of your compute resource. NAT gateway configurations. Outbound connectivity can be defined for each subnet with a NAT gateway. NAT gateway can't be used in multiple VNets. Multiple subnets within the same VNet can either use a different VNet gateway or a same VNet gateway. Multiple VNet gateway can't be attached to the single subnet. NAT gateway can't be defined in a gateway subnet. You can use custom IP prefix, that is bring your own public IPs for your NAT gateway. NAT gateway can't be associated to an public IP address, that is IPv6 or IPv6 public IP prefix. It can be associated to a dual stack subnet, but will only be able to direct outbound traffic with a IPv4 address. NAT gateway can be associated to a firewall, Azure firewall subnet in a hub VNet and provide outbound connectivity from spoke VNet paired to hub VNet. NAT gateways are compatible with standard SKU, public IP addresses, and public IP prefix resources, or a combination of both. NAT gateway has a timer, a TCP timer. As a default, TCP idle timeout is 4 minutes is used and can be increased up to 120 minutes. Any connectivity of flow can also reset the idle timer, including TCP keep alives. UDP traffic has an idle timeout of 4 minutes and this cannot be changed. UDP traffic has a port reset timer of 65 seconds for which a port is in hold down before it's available for reuse to the same destination endpoint. Here are the example where NAT gateway can be used. Example 1, let us say a scenario 1, we can say the scenario 1 where you are having public IP to your VM, also subnet is attached with NAT gateway. In this scenario, the incoming traffic is nothing but inbound traffic can be initiated using VM's public IP address, but outbound will happen with NAT gateway. The scenario 2, let us say you are having a standard load balancer and backend pool you are having a VM. So inbound can be initiated here over the load balancer, and same outbound can be happen on NAT gateway, which is attached to the same subnet. Scenario 3, you have a standard LBO also and public IP address also for a VM, and still you have NAT gateway assigned to a subnet. Then incoming can happen from both public IPs, a load balancer and independent IP, public IP, which is attached to the VM, and always the outbound take place from NAT gateway. Let's jump into the demo. Here I have a 4 VMs, and VM has their own independent public IP addresses. Let me access VM1. As a default, Azure will provide internet from its backend gateway through. So here is my VM. If I say what is my IP, this is the IP which my VM is having, the public IP address of my VM. So same way, I have VM2, VM3, VM4, all are having independent IP address. If we log in into those VM and we check our IP, it will recognize our public IP directly attached to the VM. So that IP address. Let's create a NAT gateway. NAT gateway can be found in the, like, you can get it from search box as a blue search box, NAT gateway. Here it is. Or even in the all services, you can search here as a NAT gateway. So currently I don't have any NAT gateway. Let's create it. I'll choose a resource group and I'll give a NAT gateway address as my dev subnet NAT gateway. And I'm keeping in East US, and I can either choose a specific zone or I can even keep it no zone. And TCP idle timeout is a by default 4. I can up to increase 120 minutes. I'll go for a next. Either I can attach a specific one IP address or I can even have a IP prefix. So let's say I can say, let's see, I'm making as a dev subnet NAT gateway public IP. So one public IP will be provided from Azure for this NAT gateway. If I want maybe a more than one, then I can choose here. Maybe I can make it 2 public IP, 4 public IP, 8 up to 16 public IP address. I can get it for this NAT gateway. So let's take example of taking 2 again. So NAT gateway public IP prefix. I can say in this case I'm having 2 plus 1, total 3 public IP address. Anytime, any point of time I can come back and I can remove the prefix, or I can remove public IP independently, whatever it is having it. So in now I am creating both. So total 3 public IP address will be used across my subnet. So all my 4 machines are connected to the same subnet. So the same subnet, hence the 4 virtual machine get the internet from these three IP addresses. The IP address will be displayed once we complete the deployment of NAT gateway. So next is subnet. I can associate a specific VNet subnets. I cannot associate NAT gateway to multiple VNet subnet. So I can choose particular, if I have VNet 1 and VNet 2, I can only choose VNet 1 and it will show all the subnets. So my VMs are in a default a subnet which is created at the time of VNet creation. And later point also I can anytime add the same NAT gateway for subnet 2 also. I don't want to provide any tags. I'll just create it by clicking revamp create. Now VM1 address was a public IP address as incoming. Once the NAT gateway creates, it will show me the three different IP addresses. So one is independent IP address and two are in the range. NAT gateway is completed. The deployment. Now even I can go to home and I can search for NAT gateway. Here it is my dev subnet. The dev subnet is nothing but I'm using a default subnet. I did not rename at the time of VNet. That is fine. So this is my display name as dev subnet NAT gateway. Here if I click on outbound IPs, this is my independent IP address and here is my IP prefix. So from this range, 2 IP address I will get it, and this is a 1 IP address. Total 3 IP address will be given to this specific subnet. Anytime I can come here and I can choose another subnet also, and I can change the configuration of TCP IP, TCP idle timeout 4 to 120 minutes as per my requirement. Now let's go back to the VM and open a new tab. Let's try to browse what is my IP. See, now this time the IP address is from my NAT gateway. So ending with 22.205. In this range it has picked up. So it will be random. It will be choosing any of the 3 IP address to make the outbound traffic connection. So this is how we can take a benefit of Azure NAT gateway. Thanks for watching guys. I will connect with you again on the next video. Please encourage me, support me by subscribing my channel, liking my videos, and by posting your valuable comments. I'll connect with you again in my next video. Thank you.